They say the Emperor protects, but protection is a luxury reserved for saints, soldiers, and fools. Down here, in the lungs of the hive, where the air tastes of metal and sorrow, the Emperor's gaze has long since turned away. His light does not reach us beneath 10,000 layers of industry and filth. What little radiance remains filters through kilometers of steel and smoke, refracted into a dull, sickly glow that never warms the skin. I used to wonder what sunlight felt like. I used to imagine standing beneath an open sky, the kind they describe in catechisms, endless blue, clouds like drifting cathedrals, but such thoughts are poison here. Daydreams breed discontent, discontent breeds heresy, heresy breeds fire. I've seen entire sectors purged because one worker whispered a forbidden wish. Hope is the most dangerous sin of all. The lumen strips above my bunk sputter awake, flickering between pale white and yellow. The shift horn follows, a drawn-out metallic wail that vibrates through my bones. My body moves before thought catches up, a reflex trained over decades of repetition. Sit up, breathe through the mask, check the seals, flex the left arm. The augmetic joint grinds faintly but still obeys. The smell of machine oil and burnt ozone fills the narrow hab cell. I've lived here 26 years, though calling it living feels like an insult to the word. The hab measures precisely 2 meters by 1.5. I can touch both walls without standing. Every surface bears the ghosts of those who came before, scratched initials, smudges of old blood, a prayer etched into the bulkhead. Blessed is the ignorance that shields the soul. The air recycler clatters overhead, coughing life into the stale atmosphere. It always sounds like it's dying, but so do we all. I press my palm against the wall-mounted shrine, a dented brass aquila coated in soot, and whisper the morning benediction. Not because I believe, but because cameras watch, and faithlessness is treason. The Vox unit crackles to life. The shift overseer's voice drones through static, reciting the day's quota. Sector Kappa 5, maintain output at 112% efficiency. Failure to meet target will result in corrective redistribution. Redistribution. That's what they call execution now. I rise, bones protesting, and reach for my uniform. The fabric is stiff from old sweat and machine grease. I pull it on piece by piece, sealing the respirator collar last. It locks with a hiss, the filters humming faintly. My reflection stares back from air, skin the color of ash. I do not recognize him. I haven't for years. The polished steel panel beside the door. A man half machine, eyes rimmed with red from recycled. The nutrient dispenser clicks behind me. I press my hand to the reader, and it takes blood as payment. A bowl of gray slurry drops into the tray with a wet slap. The smell is faintly chemical, the taste worse than memory. Still, I bow my head. Machine God, sanctify this sustenance that I may serve another day. The words are empty, but ritual is survival. Ritual keeps you unnoticed, and the unnoticed live the longest. Outside, the corridor stretches like a vein, pulsing with the footsteps of 1,000 workers. The air is thick with vapor and the low hum of the manufactorum above us. Everything vibrates alive with industry and misery. The overhead pipes leak a slow drizzle of condensation or coolant that trickles down the walls in streaks of rust. I join the flow, another gray figure among thousands. We march in silence toward the lifts that lead to the assembly levels. Somewhere far above, the forges roar like gods at war. They never sleep. None of us do, not truly. We dream in fragments, and even then the sound of machinery invades our minds. The lift doors slam shut, sealing us inside. 40 people packed into a space built for 20. The air tastes of metal and old sweat. No one speaks. No one ever does. Conversation is a memory, a luxury of a softer time. All that matters now is function, output, endurance. The lift shudders to life, climbing through layers of the hive. Through the grated floor I glimpse the lower levels, endless pits of machinery and darkness, lights flickering like distant stars swallowed by smoke. Once, they say, this hive reached the heavens, now it sinks ever deeper into its own decay. A woman coughs beside me, the sound wet and ragged. Her mask is cracked, one filter missing. She will not last the week. No one offers help. To touch another worker is to risk infection, to risk contamination, to risk being flagged for quarantine. Mercy is inefficiency. The lift halts with a screech. We pour out like oil onto the assembly floor. The heat hits instantly, a wave of furnace breath that scorches the lungs even through the respirator. Overhead, the gantries tremble with the weight of machines and men. Sparks rain from the ceiling, falling like dying stars. My station awaits a row of servo presses stretching into infinity. Each one stamps plasteel sheets into components for some weapon I'll never see, destined for soldiers I'll never meet, fighting wars I'll never understand. The Emperor demands production. The manufactorum obeys, and we obey the manufactorum. The press to my right malfunctions, grinding to a halt with a scream of tearing metal. The worker stationed there, a young man with a burned cheek, hesitates for one fatal second before reaching for the reset rune. The machine answers with a sound like thunder. A moment later, the floor is painted red. The overseer's voice cuts through the din. Unit Kappa 117, resume operation. Waste removal initiated. 2 servitors glide forward on treads, their flesh stretched tight around augmetic frames. They drag the remains away without ceremony. One of them hums a broken hymn as it works. The smell of blood mixes with ozone. I feel nothing, not pity, not fear, only the cold awareness that today it was him, tomorrow it could be me. Hours blur, time does not flow here, it grinds. The shift horn marks its passing, but the noise means nothing. I lose track of how many cycles pass before the machine pauses for recalibration. I use the moment to stretch, though the motion sends pain through every joint. The augmetic spine whines in protest. It was installed after the last injury, when the press shattered my lower vertebrae. The medicae said I was lucky, I could still serve, that word again, serve, as if existence itself is payment for obedience. The worker across from me mutters something under his breath, a prayer maybe. His lips move too quickly for me to catch the words. A servo skull floats overhead, scanning us with red lenses. I lower my gaze. The skull pauses above him, the Vox unit crackling. Deviation from silence detected. Worker identified 4422J. Report to correctional chamber. He doesn't resist. None of us do. He steps away from his station, trembling. The skull follows, reciting litanies of obedience as it escorts him down the corridor. When the sound of the Vox fades, the press resumes its rhythm, and so do we. There are no names here, only designations. I used to be Jorik Huldon. Now I am worker 44729J, cog in an endless machine. And in this machine, cogs are not meant to think. Thinking leads to questions. Questions lead to pain. The day ends, though day and night mean nothing, and the horn signals shift change. I file out with the others, hands trembling, lungs aching. The corridors are packed again, bodies moving in perfect mechanical unison. Above us, banners hang from the walls. Labor is devotion. Devotion is purity. The words have been there for centuries, their edges blackened by soot. We pass a detachment of enforcers, faceless figures in black carapace armor, shock mauls humming softly. Their visors reflect our fear back at us. No one dares meet their gaze. One worker stumbles, too exhausted to rise. An enforcer steps forward, and the sound that follows is brief and final. The body is dragged away before the blood cools. The line never stops. Back in the hab block, the air is thicker, the lights dimmer, the walls hum with power conduits and whispered prayers. I strip off my uniform, muscles trembling with exhaustion. The recycler coughs, sputters, and dies. I'll need to file a maintenance request, though I know it will never be answered. Requests are for the living. We are not alive, we simply persist. I sit on the edge of the cot, staring at the shrine. The Aquila's wings are cracked, one side broken completely. I remember when I used to believe, when I thought that suffering meant purpose, that endurance meant favor. Now I see the truth. The Imperium does not need faith, it needs fuel. I run my hand across the wall, feeling the grooves left by countless others, each mark a testament to someone who once existed. The silence hums, the machines above continue their eternal chorus, and I whisper to no one, "The Emperor protects." But even as I say it, I know the lie. The Emperor protects, that's what the catechisms teach. But protection is not survival. Protection is an idea, a story whispered to keep the gears turning. Down here, we do not live under his protection, we live under his silence. I lie back on the cot, the thin padding pressing against my spine's augmetic ridges. The hum of the hive is constant, vibrating through metal, through flesh, through thought. It's like being inside the lungs of a dying god, forced to listen to every shallow breath. Sometimes when the power conduits pulse just right, the noise almost sounds like a heartbeat. Almost. Sleep doesn't come easily. It never does. The stimulants they lace into the nutrient rations keep us alert during shift hours, but they never truly leave the blood. My eyes close, but my mind doesn't rest. It drifts through memory, through the years before I stopped asking questions. I was 16 when I first entered the manufactorum. Before that, I worked in waste reclamation, sorting, cleaning, repurposing the refuse of a billion souls. The air was thick with rot, the ground slick with chemicals, but even then I remember thinking, at least we could see the outer lights. Faint though they were, they marked the divide between labor and sky. When I was reassigned to the deeper levels, that light vanished. The only illumination came from the machines, a perpetual sunrise of sparks and molten metal. We were told it was an honor, a chance to serve directly in the Emperor's industry. They told us that our work forged weapons that would defend mankind against its enemies. I believed it then. We all did. Belief is easier than truth. The Vox unit above my bunk clicks once, twice. The static resolves into a voice. Worker 44729J, prepare for auxiliary inspection. Compliance required. My breath catches. Inspections are rare and never good. I rise automatically, pulling on my uniform, sealing the respirator mask tight. The air recycler groans awake as I step into the corridor. The lumen strips flicker in sequence, guiding me toward the lift. 2 enforcers wait inside, featureless behind their mirrored visors. Between them, a servo skull hovers, its lenses glowing red. Designation confirmed. The skull intones in a voice that sounds almost reverent. Follow. We move through silent corridors. The hum of the hive feels distant here, muffled by layers of insulation and ritual secrecy. My pulse hammers against my ribs. I've seen others taken for inspection. Most never return. Those who do come back different, quieter, slower, with new scars or new implants humming beneath their flesh. The chamber we enter is cold, unnaturally so. A single lumen globe burns above a metal table, casting long shadows. The walls are marked with sigils of the Adeptus Mechanicus, cog and skull motifs etched into steel. A figure stands at the far end, robed in crimson, face obscured by a respirator mask of its own. Mechadendrites twitch and coil behind it like serpents made of chrome. Its voice is filtered, mechanical, yet strangely soft. Worker 44729J, it says, you have exceeded your production quota for 17 consecutive cycles. Commendable. The praise feels wrong. Praise is dangerous. Praise draws attention. Your efficiency rate suggests optimal machine integration, it continues. We require such minds for auxiliary operations. You have been selected for Ascension trials. Ascension. The word hits harder than any blow. I know what it means. Not promotion, transformation. Servitor integration. Flesh repurposed into obedience. The tech priest tilts its head, as if studying me through unseen eyes. Do not fear, worker. The machine god cherishes all who serve. One of the mechadendrites extends, tipped with a needle. I take a step back, instinct overriding reason. The enforcers move instantly, shock mauls raised. Electricity crackles in the air. I stop. The needle pierces my arm. Cold liquid floods my veins. The world blurs. The walls melt into light. Voices echo. Fragments of binary hymns, prayers half sung, half coded. For a moment I feel weightless, unbound from the cage of my body. Then, just as suddenly, the sensation ends. I wake in my hab cell, or what looks like it. My head throbs. The light flickers too brightly. I reach for my arm, a fresh puncture wound, sealed with surgical resin. The recycler hums differently, a higher pitch. I check the shrine. The Aquila's wings gleam faintly, polished clean. The notification panel blinks red. System update. Neural calibration pending. I don't know what that means. I don't want to know. Days pass, or maybe weeks. The distinction dissolves in repetition. I return to my station, my movements sharper, more precise. My body aches less, but something inside me feels slower, like thoughts now have to push through oil to reach the surface. I find myself working faster without realizing it, each motion perfectly measured. One evening after the shift horn, I linger by the coolant vents. The air there is cooler, almost fresh. I can hear the distant hymns of the upper levels, machine choirs reciting litanies of maintenance. For the first time in years, I almost feel peace. Then I see them. 3 servitors stand motionless in the shadows, their limbs fused with industrial tools. One of them turns slightly, its pale face illuminated by the lumen above, and I recognize the eyes. The same worker who was escorted away weeks ago for deviation from silence. He stares straight ahead, lips moving in rhythm with the humming of the machines. His mouth forms words that are no longer his. Praise the Omnissiah. Something inside me fractures, not loudly, not suddenly, like a crack forming in a thick wall, silent, inevitable. I return to my hab cell and stare at my hands. They look normal, they move when I tell them to, but beneath the skin something feels wrong. My pulse doesn't sync with my breath. My thoughts echo twice before settling. I wonder if they did something to me. Rewired, recalibrated, optimized. Sleep evades me again. I sit in darkness, listening to the hive breathe. Somewhere above, a thunderous boom shakes the walls. Another purge, perhaps. Another heresy burned clean. I whisper a prayer I no longer believe. Blessed is the mind too small for doubt. The next shift begins as all others. The lift, the press, the noise, but everything feels slightly off, slightly too smooth. I no longer feel tired. I no longer feel much at all. The worker beside me falters, her hand caught in the press. The machine reacts instantly, sealing the wound with a burst of cauterizing flame. She screams once, then silence. She looks at her arm, or what's left of it, and keeps working. So do I. Time folds in on itself. Days become mechanical. Thought becomes redundant. The machines don't need me to think. They only need me to exist. And still, deep in the back of my mind, something stirs. A fragment of what I was. Jorik Halden, human, dreamer. That name feels alien now. A relic of a forgotten world. I try to remember my mother's face, my father's voice, the sound of laughter, but memory is fading, overwritten by the rhythm of the presses, the hum of the vents, the static of the Vox. One night, the Vox speaks again. 44729J, report to upper deck for reclassification. My hands move without command. The lift doors open. I step inside, surrounded by silence. The ascent takes minutes, or maybe hours. When the doors open, the air smells different, cleaner, charged with ozone and sanctified oils. A vast chamber stretches before me, filled with rows of suspended figures, half human, half machine, suspended in translucent gel. Servitors, hundreds of them, their eyes flicker with faint light. A tech priest approaches. You have served well, it says. Your loyalty has been verified. Your mind shows minimal resistance. You will ascend soon. I should scream, I should run, but the thought never forms completely. The fluid in my veins feels cold again. My vision narrows. The hum of the hive fades into a single perfect tone, and in that moment, just before everything dissolves, I understand. The Emperor does protect, not the living but the order, the machine, the endless cycle. We are his blood, his marrow, his sacrifice. Then the world goes white. When awareness returns, it is not sudden. It seeps in like coolant through a cracked pipe, slow and cold. Sound reaches me first, a low metallic chant echoing through endless corridors. Then light, a dull amber haze spilling across a ceiling that stretches higher than any cathedral I remember. I try to move. The effort feels wrong, like thinking through tar. Joints creak, servos hiss. Something answers my will, but not all of it is flesh. I feel the hum of circuits under skin that no longer belongs entirely to me. Calibration complete, a voice murmurs nearby. Cognitive fragments stable. I open my eyes fully. I am in a bay filled with others. Rows upon rows of motionless forms suspended on steel racks, each marked by a glowing sigil. Some still breathe, others do not. Every one of them bears the mark of the Omnissiah burned into their chest. A priest moves along the line, murmuring machine hymns. Its footsteps click against the floor in perfect rhythm with the beat pulsing in my skull. When it stops beside me, I expect pain. Instead, it places a metal hand on my brow. You serve still, it says. Function restored. Praise the union of flesh and form. Then it moves on. For a long time I simply listen. The great manufactorum breathes around me, alive in ways no living thing should be. Each vent sighs, each piston chants. The noise is almost comforting, like a heartbeat I can no longer claim as my own. They call this ascension. They tell us we have become closer to perfection, mind joined with mechanism, freed from weakness. But I feel only absence. Not death, not life. A hollow in which thought drifts like dust. Days, if days exist here, Pass inside that hollow. Orders come through the vox implanted behind my ear. I obey without hesitation. Carry, weld, lift, replace. I do these things because they are spoken, and the words are law. Sometimes, fragments surface. A name whispered from somewhere deep. Jorek. It means nothing at first. Later, it burns like a forgotten prayer. When it comes, the machine part of me shudders, as if uncertain. The human part listens, hungry. One shift, during power maintenance, the lights fail. In the dark, the endless hum falters for half a breath, and in that half breath, I hear them. The voices of workers far below chanting the morning hymn I once knew, so faint, so far, but human. Something inside me stirs. I follow the echo with senses I no longer understand. My body, half guided by command lines, half by memory, drifts toward the sound. The priests do not see. The cameras blink and move away. A maintenance shaft gapes ahead. I descend. Each rung vibrates with the life of the hive. The air grows warmer, thicker, closer to the filth and noise of the lower levels. For a moment I can almost smell oil mixed with sweat, the scent of my old life. I reach a platform overlooking the assembly floor. Thousands of workers move like tides, gray uniforms blending into the smoke. The sight hits me harder than any blow. I used to stand among them. I used to breathe that same stale air and call it devotion. Now as I watch, I realize the terrible symmetry. They move as we do. Flesh mimicking machine, machine mimicking flesh. There is no border anymore. The vox in my skull flares. Unauthorized position detected. Return to bay. Static gnaws at my thoughts, trying to drown them. For a moment I resist, not out of rebellion but confusion. Which voice is mine? Which belongs to the hive? The pain that follows is clean and total. It burns thought to silence. My vision flares white, then black. When I wake again, I am back on the rack. The priests chant the litany of reinitialization. They say my deviation has been corrected. I no longer feel the urge to move where I should not. I no longer feel the echo of that human name. Only, at night, if the concept still applies, when the lumen globes dim and the noise of the hive softens, a faint tremor runs through the servos in my arm. A twitch, a memory of motion that was once my own. I wonder dimly if the others feel it too, if somewhere inside their rewired minds the remnants of humanity whisper to one another through the metal. Perhaps that is the Emperor's protection after all, not salvation, but the refusal to let the last ember of memory die completely. The machines hum a lullaby older than faith. I close my eyes, and in the quiet between pulses, I almost hear the sound of breathing that is mine alone. The hum never stops. Even in the quiet hours when the lumen globes fade to rust-colored glows and the overseers retreat to their watch stations, the hive continues to breathe. The rhythm of it has become the measure of my existence, steady, exact, indifferent. They call us integrated labor units now. There is a number stamped above my rack that matches the mark burned into the metal of my wrist. I used to trace that brand in the dark, wondering if the heat had reached bone. Now I simply look at it and count the scratches left by the tools. Counting helps. Numbers still obey reason, even when everything else dissolves. During the shift I am moved to the reactor levels. The air here hums with static. The walls sweat with condensed steam that tastes faintly of copper. Every breath fogs the inside of my respirator lens. I clean filters, tighten conduits, recite maintenance prayers in a voice that no longer trembles. The priests pass between us like phantoms, faces hidden, robes whispering against the floor, leaving trails of incense and coded blessings. One of them pauses beside me. I can see my reflection in the red glass of its mask, small and warped. Unit 44729J, it says. Output consistent. The Omnissiah notes your steadiness. It moves away before I can answer. I stand there for a moment, unsure whether I should feel pride or fear. Both are dangerous luxuries. Later, a power fluctuation rolls through the chamber. The lights dim, the reactor shudders, sparks shower the walkway like a brief dying storm. Everyone freezes. For a heartbeat, the entire hive seems to hold its breath. Then the backup systems engage, and the chant begins, thousands of voices rising in perfect unison, reciting the verse of continuity. I mouth the words automatically, but behind them I feel that same faint flicker of something else, something unscripted. When the lights stabilize, I glimpse the worker opposite me, a woman whose eyes shine with reflected blue from the coolant streams. For the smallest instant she meets my gaze. No words, No gesture, but in that glance I recognize the same shadow of awareness that haunts me. She knows, or maybe she only wonders. Either way, it is enough. The priests never notice. That night, the hive above our sector erupts. We feel it first as a tremor underfoot, then as the roar of distant collapse. Through the vents comes the scent of smoke and charred insulation. Rumor passes like static. A breach, a heresy, an entire manufactorum level sealed and purged. 20 million gone, they say. The number means nothing anymore. Only the silence that follows has weight. We continue to work because that is what the living remnants of obedience do. Yet as I tighten bolts and polish conduits, I imagine the ghosts of those burned levels drifting through the pipes carried with the steam, whispering across the hive's endless arteries. Sometimes the whispers form words. Sometimes they form my name. After the next cycle, when the lumen strips flare to signal rest, I lie on my rack and stare at the ceiling. The hum above deepens to a slower rhythm, like a mechanical heartbeat preparing for sleep. My thoughts wander to impossible places, to open skies, to warmth that isn't born of furnaces. I do not know if such places exist, but the mind makes them real for as long as memory lasts. If any overseer could read thoughts, I would already be ash. But here, inside the cage of my skull, rebellion can be quiet, rebellion can be remembering. And so I remember. I remember a mother's voice calling my name across a noise of markets. I remember the taste of air not filtered through iron. I remember laughing, once thin and uncertain but real. The memory feels fragile like glass underfoot, yet it glows enough to cast a small light in the dark. The hive's noise begins to rise again, signaling another shift. I should sleep, but I sit upright instead. Somewhere in the far distance a siren mourns, low and tired. The sound folds into the endless chant of the machines until I can no longer tell them apart. Maybe that is what the Emperor wanted all along, a world where faith and labor and silence become the same thing, where humanity's heartbeat and the rumble of engines are indistinguishable. If so, then he has his victory. But as I close my eyes, the faint echo of that lost laughter still stirs beneath the metal drone, and for one impossible moment I almost believe that means we have ours too. When I wake again, I don't know if a day has passed or a week. Time is elastic here. The hive never sleeps. It only shifts its attention from one layer to another, like a beast rolling over in its own filth. The klaxon begins its morning wail, a jagged metallic hymn. The Vox unit coughs static, then delivers the same announcement it has since my first day in service. The Emperor sees all, the faithful endure. Productivity is devotion. I move automatically, hands, arms, spine, each part remembering its function long before thought arrives. I am a machine that dreams it is human. My uniform still carries the scent of coolant and sweat, and the fabric tears slightly as I pull it on. No replacements this month. The supply ships are delayed again. We are told to offer thanks that the delay means we will have extra shifts to prove our loyalty. I whisper the mandatory prayer over the cogwheel insignia stitched above my heart. The words taste of iron. The corridors outside the hab are already full. Rows of bodies march in perfect step toward the elevators, their faces pale and featureless behind respirators. The only sound is the synchronized thud of boots and the faint rattle of metal joints. We resemble a living conveyor belt, feeding ourselves to the hive's hunger. As we descend to the lower levels, I watch condensation drip from the pipes above. It falls in slow rhythm onto the shoulders of the man in front of me. He doesn't react. Maybe he's forgotten what it means to notice discomfort. Maybe that's what survival looks like now, forgetting that pain used to matter. At the work site, the overseers wait with their data slates. Their red eyes glow behind masks shaped like skulls. One recites a passage from the Manual of Infinite Service. The words echo between the metal walls. Faith is labor, doubt is rust, the weak are recycled. We answer in unison, our voices merging into a single dull chant. Somewhere above, a servo skull drifts past, its optics recording our obedience. The shift begins. Hours, or maybe years, bleed together in the constant roar of engines. Sparks leap like fireflies in the gloom. I tighten bolts until my fingers ache, then keep tightening long after they've gone numb. The woman I noticed before is stationed across the gantry now. Her posture is identical to mine, bent, mechanical, unthinking, but every so often she pauses for half a breath, just long enough to glance toward me. It's dangerous. Yet I start counting the seconds between her glances as though that too were a kind of prayer. Halfway through the shift, an alarm shrieks. A loader drone collapses in a shower of sparks, crushing 2 workers beneath its weight. The overseer doesn't flinch. He simply waves for replacements. The bodies are dragged away by servitors, limbs dangling like discarded wires. The work continues. Always the work. Later, when the lights dim to mark the end of the cycle, I linger. I shouldn't. Loitering without order is an infraction. But I stay long enough to stare into the cooling vents, where the heat shimmers in waves of orange and gold. For a heartbeat, it almost resembles sunlight. Back in my hab, I open the tiny wall shrine and stare at the icon inside, a tarnished aquila carved from some unknown alloy. I touch it with my fingertips. It's cold. I whisper the required benediction, though the words blur. Blessed is the mind, too small for doubt. My voice fades before the final syllable. I wonder what happens when the words finally lose all meaning. Do we vanish, or does the hive simply invent new ones for us to say? I close the shrine and sit on the edge of my bunk. The hum of machinery seeps through the walls, constant and patient. Somewhere deep below, I imagine the great reactors pulsing like the heart of a god that has forgotten why it beats. Sometimes I think I can feel the entire hive breathing with me. Sometimes I think it's the other way around, that I'm breathing for it. The next morning, the air tastes of rust and ozone. Something in the filters has failed again. We are told it is within acceptable variance. I breathe anyway. There is no other choice. When the klaxon blares, I am already awake. I have learned to wake before it, to avoid the shock of sound hammering through bone. The body adapts. It always does. That's what they tell us during indoctrination. The flesh yields, the will obeys, the emperor endures. As the corridors fill with workers, I catch fragments of conversation, whispers quickly silenced. There are rumors that the upper habs are quarantined, something about a mutation outbreak. The word alone carries the weight of death. Even saying it too loud can summon an execution squad. So we speak in gestures now, glances, hesitations, the faint twitch of a hand over a respirator. Fear has its own language and everyone in the hive is fluent. We reach the lifts. The doors close with a hydraulic sigh, sealing us inside a narrow box of metal and stale air. The descent takes 4 minutes and 23 seconds. I know because I count every time. Counting makes time behave. It reminds me that the seconds are still mine, even if the years aren't. The manufactorum smells different today, sharper, almost sweet. A coolant leak, perhaps, or maybe the scent of bodies burned for inefficiency. The overseers never clarify. The woman from before works 2 stations away now. The proximity feels like an accident engineered by fate, or perhaps by some fragment of machine logic that finds amusement in irony. We don't speak, but sometimes when the overseers are busy with their slates, I see her trace shapes on the edge of her console, circles, lines, something that might be letters. I wonder if she remembers words beyond the liturgies. During the 4th cycle, the lights flicker. The hum of the engines dips a single note lower. Every worker freezes. It's a sound we all recognize, the moment before something catastrophic. Then it comes, a tremor that rattles the entire platform. Panels burst from the walls, spewing vapor. The overseers shout code phrases. The alarms wail like dying beasts. Through the haze, I see a pipe burst, spraying boiling steam. Workers vanish in the cloud, their screams devoured by the noise. Instinct moves me before thought can. I grab a nearby tool and jam it against a vent to redirect pressure. The heat sears through my gloves. The pain is distant, almost academic. When the pressure stabilizes, the alarms fade. Silence rushes in, thick and heavy. The overseer approaches, his robes dark with soot. Efficient reaction, he says through his vox grill. The omnissiah favors precision. He marks something on his slate and moves on. That night, the survivors are given an extra ration. I stare at the gray slurry in my bowl and wonder if it contains the same nutrients that once belonged to those who burned. The thought makes me smile, though I don't know why. The woman sits across from me. For the first time, she speaks, her voice barely audible under the drone of machinery. They won't fix the pipe, she says. They'll just move us deeper. Her eyes are pale gray, the color of worn metal. I nod. Deeper is closer to the core, closer to the Emperor's light, she says, and there is something like mockery in her tone, or maybe hope. I can't tell anymore. When I return to my hab, I don't activate the lumen strips. I sit in the dark and listen to the hive's heartbeat. The sound has changed. There's a pulse now, a slow, uneven rhythm beneath the steady drone. It feels alive, too alive. For the first time in years I whisper without a script. Is anyone there? Only the machines answer. The days or what pass for days blur again. The hum beneath the floors grows louder, a bass note that settles in my ribs and never leaves. The overseers say it's the sound of efficiency. The old workers say it's the hive remembering the dead. We've been reassigned to Sector Delta 33. Deeper, the lift ride lasts so long that the air thins and the walls sweat condensation that smells of oil and copper. When the doors open, the heat hits like a wave. The corridor glows with the dull orange of forge light, and dust hangs thick enough to taste. Here, the ceiling vanishes into haze. The machines are larger, older, cathedral engines built before any of us were born. Each one moves with the slow majesty of something half alive. Servitors hang from rails, their limbs jerking as they weld, polish, repair. Every motion is accompanied by the same whispered prayer. The words lose meaning through repetition, turning into rhythm. I find my station beside a window of reinforced glass. Beyond it lies the plasma shaft, a vertical canyon of light that splits the hive in two. The energy rising from it flickers like a false sunrise, painting everything in ghostly amber. When I stare too long, the after-images dance behind my eyes. The woman, her designation is Lyra now, I think, works across from me again. We no longer pretend not to notice each other. During the meal pause, she leans closer, voice low. "Did you hear about Hive Tertius?" she asks. I nod. They purged it. For what? For remembering. She doesn't laugh, but I see the ghost of it in her eyes. It's the first human expression I've seen in months. Later, when the alarms quiet and the shift ends, I remain by the glass. The light from the plasma shaft flickers against my mask, and for an instant I imagine it's sunlight on water. I can almost hear waves, though I have never seen an ocean. Something moves in the reflection. At first I think it's my own shadow, but it isn't. A shape glides through the steam. Slender, mechanical, deliberate. It pauses, facing the window, though there's no face to see. For a breathless second I feel it watching me, then it turns and disappears into the glare. When I tell the overseer, he only says maintenance drones often wander. Do not observe them longer than required. His tone leaves no space for questions. Still, the image clings to me, the way it paused as if listening. Back in my hab, the air recycler wheezes. I lie awake counting the intervals between each breath of the machine and my own. Eventually they fall into rhythm. I can't tell which one follows the other. The next cycle, the power stutters again. The overseers bark orders, their voices distorted by vox feedback. The plasma shaft flares, then dims, and in that dimness I see movement, hundreds of small lights drifting upward like sparks, vanishing into the dark. They remind me of souls, though the priests say souls are too valuable to waste here. I keep my hands steady on the controls, but inside something shifts. Not rebellion, something quieter, awareness maybe, or the faint memory of choice. The hum is different now. It's not louder, just closer, like something leaning in to whisper. I try to ignore it, but even my dreams vibrate with the sound. During the shift, the overseers distribute new data slates. We are told to record fluctuations in temperature and light, no reason given. The mechanicus never explains why. The act of measuring is worship enough, but the readings are strange. Heat where there should be cold, light where the lumen strips have failed. Lyra notices too. When our paths cross, she tilts her head slightly, a silent question. I shake mine. It is safer not to speak. On the third cycle I hear the first voice. It comes from the wall between conduits, faint, rhythmic, almost like breath pushed through a broken pipe. Words form, blurred by static. You still there? I freeze. No one else reacts. The others keep working, eyes fixed forward. The sound fades before I can decide whether I truly heard it. Maybe the hum has learned a new trick. Maybe I am finally breaking. At rest period, I find Lyra waiting near the vents. She's drawn something on the bulkhead, a small circle with a line through it. The reactors are talking, she says quietly. You've heard them, haven't you? I want to deny it, but lying feels pointless here. Once, I answer. Maybe. They've always spoken. We just stopped listening. The next few shifts pass in uneasy silence. The overseers grow more agitated, their movements sharp. One disappears mid-cycle, no explanation. The servitors replace him without ceremony. Efficiency, after all, is devotion. One evening the power fails entirely. For the first time in decades there is darkness, true, unfiltered, absolute, no lumen glow, no warning klaxons. Only the faint residual shine of the plasma shaft pulsing far below like the heartbeat of a buried god. Around me hundreds of workers freeze, afraid to move. Then through the dark the hum returns, deeper, slower, almost gentle. I can feel it through the floor, through my hands, through the scar on my wrist where the designation brand was burned. The sound resolves into cadence, then into words. Remember. I don't know if it's mechanical echo or the last unbroken fragment of my own mind, but the word lodges in me like a spark trapped under skin. When the lights return, nothing has changed, and yet everything has. The overseers act as if the blackout never occurred. The priests chant longer prayers, but the workers move differently now. Slower, listening. That night I open my shrine and look at the small Aquila inside. For years it was just another piece of metal, another object to clean and obey. Now I see the faint crack down its center, and for some reason it feels more sacred that way. Imperfection looks almost alive. I whisper, not a litany, not a plea, just the truth that fills my chest until it hurts. I am still here. The machines answer with their endless hum, and for the first time in a lifetime it sounds like acknowledgement. The word remember stays with me. It hides in the rhythm of the pumps, in the hiss of steam, in the scrape of metal against metal. When I close my eyes, I see it written across the inside of my eyelids, glowing faintly like a command stamped into memory. The overseers say nothing about the blackout. They double the shifts instead, as if work can drown thought. We obey, because obedience is the only currency that buys time. Yet each motion feels heavier now, as though the air itself resists us. Lyra still draws symbols on the walls, small things, circles, intersecting lines, what might be the outline of a sun. The marks vanish overnight, painted over by servitors, but she redraws them each cycle. I start leaving one of my own, a single line, nothing more. She sees it once, and for a moment we share a glance that feels like speech. During the 5th cycle, the hum rises to a pitch that rattles teeth. The entire hive vibrates, then it stops completely. Silence, a sound so vast that it feels like the universe has been switched off. We stand frozen, tools in hand. Even the servitors hesitate, their limbs twitching without command. In that silence, something inside me opens. I can feel the hive around us, layers of corridors, reactors, pipes, chambers, all breathing together in slow unison. It isn't divine, it isn't kind, it's simply vast, aware in the way storms are aware. A consciousness made from centuries of prayer, blood, and the echo of machinery. It doesn't speak, it listens. The lights flicker back to life. Work resumes. The overseers shout, but their voices sound thin now, fragile against the depth of that remembered stillness. That night I can't sleep. I sit by the vent and listen. The hum has returned to its old rhythm, but beneath it there's another pulse, a faint counterbeat. I match my breathing to it. It feels like aligning with something immense, something older than obedience. Lyra finds me before the next shift. Her voice is barely more than a breath. They're moving us again. Core level. That's impossible, I whisper. Nothing's impossible anymore. We descend for hours. The lift shudders, then stops so suddenly that the floor trembles. The doors open to heat and light. Before us lies the heart of the hive, a chamber so large, the ceiling vanishes in smoke. Reactors bloom like black suns, chained in iron scaffolds. The air hums with energy that feels almost alive. We join the line of workers feeding the conduits. Every movement has the weight of ritual. As I slot the tools into the glowing machinery, I realize the hum and my heartbeat have become one. The hive no longer surrounds me, it includes me. I look across the gantry and see Lyra raise her hand, palm outward. I mirror the gesture. Between us, the roar of the machine swells, filling everything with golden static. In that moment, I understand we were never forgotten. We were absorbed. Our lives, our work, our prayers woven into the endless memory of this place. The Emperor's gaze may have passed on, but the hive itself remembers because we are the hive. The overseer's voice crackles over the vox, cycle complete. Resume standard devotions. I close my eyes. The words I whisper aren't in any catechism. Blessed is the mind that still remembers. The hum answers, low, steady, eternal. I don't dream anymore. When I close my eyes, I drift through corridors that no longer exist. They unfold like arteries in the dark, carrying the hum instead of blood. I move through them without weight, passing walls that breathe in rhythm with me. Sometimes I think I see faces in the metal, pressures that rise and fade, outlines of those who worked before me. They aren't ghosts, they're memories, recorded in the sound of the hive itself. Every shift now begins and ends the same way. Light flares, metal sings, overseers chant, but beneath the words I hear another cadence, softer, older. The others must hear it too. Their movements have changed. They fall into step with the hidden rhythm, unconsciously aligning. Even the servitors pulse in time. No one speaks of it, yet every soul feels the pull. Lyra stands beside me at the conduits. The heat paints her mask in gold. When she turns, I catch her voice through the vox filter. Do you feel it? Yes, it remembers us. She nods, and for the first time, the gesture feels like faith, not in the Emperor, not in any creed, but in the strange persistence of what refuses to vanish. Later, during maintenance pause, I walk the length of the gantry alone. The plasma shaft burns beneath the grating, a column of molten light that never dims. Its glow touches every surface, and the metal seems to breathe with it. I rest my hand on the railing. It's hot enough to hurt, but I keep it there until the pain steadies. I whisper a name, my own, and hear it echo back, distorted, multiplied. The hive repeats it. I can't tell whether it's acknowledgement or consumption. The overseer's vox crackles, static orders, fragments of litany. Maintain alignment. The machine god endures. But I'm no longer sure who the machine god is. Maybe it's this, the endless pulse of labor, memory and sound. Maybe the Omnissiah was never elsewhere. Maybe he was waiting inside the noise all along. When the shift ends, I don't return to my hab. I follow the maintenance tunnels downward, guided by the vibration underfoot. The air grows hotter, heavier. The walls narrow until I must move sideways, scraping against metal slick with condensation. The hum swells, filling my skull until thought itself becomes rhythm. At last I reach a small platform overlooking the core. It's beautiful, a sphere of light suspended in darkness, alive with arcs of energy. Every heartbeat in the hive seems to originate here. I kneel without meaning to. The heat presses against my skin, and the hum resolves into 1,000 overlapping voices, workers, overseers, priests, all speaking the same single phrase. We remember. For a long time I stay there. The light does not burn, it only envelops. I feel my pulse slowing, matching the greater rhythm. The distinction between breath and machinery fades. I could stay forever in that sound. If the overseers find me, they will erase my designation, recycle my flesh, write a new number in my place, but numbers are part of the human too. Nothing is lost, everything is transformed. I close my eyes and let the vibration move through me. Somewhere far above, the klaxons wail the start of another cycle. The workers will rise, whisper the morning prayer, march to their stations. The hive will breathe, the human will continue. I open my mouth to speak one last truth, though no one is near enough to hear. My name is Jorik Hulden. Worker designation KTH44729J. I remember, the machines answer with endless patient thunder, and the sound is almost merciful.